Hey, what's up guys? Dan Fletcher here again with episode number 7 of Let's Learn Ruby on Codecademy. So we're about 31% through the course so far. Where we left off last time was looping with Ruby. We did the radicated lesson, or redacted lesson, where we searched through a string of text for a word to replace with the word redacted. Today we're going to look at arrays and hashes, and the lesson's called data structures, so let's get started with that. Okay, creating arrays. Earlier we saw that an array can be used to store a list of values in a single variable. You can stuff any number of numbers in there. You can repeat numbers, and they don't have to be in numeric order. So declare a variable, myArray, in the editor and set it equal to an array of your choice. Check the hint if you need a syntax refresher. So we'll make a variable called myArray, and we'll just do something like that. And we'll run. And it passes. Okay, so next, access by index. Here's something interesting about arrays. Each element in the array has what's called an index. The first element is at index 0, the next at index 1, the following is at index 2, and so on. We can access elements of the array directly through these numbers using brackets, like so. Like this. Okay, so they have an array, and they're assigning it an array 5, 7, 9, 2, 0. And what they're saying is the indexing starts at 0. So 5 is at the index 0, 7 is at the index 1, 9 is at the index 2. So if you call array at the index of 2, it should return 9, since 9 is at index 2. The diagram below shows how these indices work for our sample array 57920. The first element has index 0, the next has 1, the next has 2, and so on. So this is them just drawing out this nice little chart explaining what I just said. This is a bit of an oversimplification, but it gets the idea across for now. We can access the ith element of an array called array by putting the index in square brackets like so. Array I, array 0 gets the first element, array 1 gets the second element, and so on. This is called access by index. And this is what you'll see when you access elements in an array when you're inside of a loop. So use square bracket notation to print the third value of demo array to the console. Remember that the third value is at index 2, not at index 3. We start counting indices from 0. It wants us to print the third value. So demo array index 2 would be the third value. Let's run it. And we're green. Arrays of non-numbers. Here's something you might not have known. You can make an array of any collection of Ruby objects. You can make an array of booleans, an array of strings. The possibilities are almost endless. Create a new array called string array. Make it an array of strings. Okay, so string array equals we'll say John, Frank, Sarah, and whatever. Run it, and it passes. Let's go to the next. Arrays of arrays. You might be asking yourself, if I can put anything in an array, can I make an array of arrays? And the answer is yes. Check out the array of arrays we have in the editor. Arrays of arrays are called multi-dimensional arrays, since the act of adding more arrays expands the array out of its string-like shape. For instance, the array in the editor is a two-dimensional array. So it's a little easier to see if you make a space here. So we have this array, which is an array of arrays. Let me just make a little spacing so you guys can see this. So this would be index 0, right? Is an array, and it's an array of 4 items. All are just zeros, right? So we have index 0, and at the index 0, we can call another index of 0, which would be this. Index 0, 1, index 0, 2, index 0, 3. This would be index 1. We have index 1, 0, index 1, 1, index 1, 2, index 1, 3, and so on all the way through your multi-dimensional array. Okay, so the instructions is, can you guess what this two-dimensional array will look like if we print it out? So for each element in this array, or each object, which is just an array, we're going to call that array x, and we're going to put the value of x. So we should just see 4 arrays of zeros printed to the console. And we do. Create your own. See how a two-dimensional array with the same number of elements per row and overall rows is a square. An array, like a line, is one-dimensional. An array of arrays, like a square, is two-dimensional. Create your own two-dimensional array called my 2D array in the editor. The elements of the inner arrays can be anything you like. Number, string, booleans, and so on. Check the hint if you need help. Okay, so my 2D array equals an array of, we'll just stick with stars. And I'm going to copy that guy. Does it say how many? No, it just needs to be multi-dimensional. So we'll do that. And then, okay, that's it. So that passes. Let's go to the next. Introduction to hashes. We know that arrays are indexed with numbers that start with 0 and go up to the array's length -1. Think about it. An array with 4 elements has the indices 0, 1, 2, and 3. But what if we want to use numeric indices that don't go in order from 0 to the end of the array? What if we don't want to use numbers as indices at all? We'll need a new array structure called a hash. Hashes are sort of like JavaScript objects or Python dictionaries. Another word for this too is just associative array versus numeric array. If you haven't studied those languages, all you need to know that a hash is a collection of key value pairs. Hash syntax looks like this. Values are assigned to keys using this double arrow syntax, equal, greater than. You can use any Ruby object for a key or value. We've created a hash in the editor to the right. See how it's made up of keys and values. Check out the code below it. It should look vaguely familiar. Click run to see what it will do. So yeah, the reason they call this a hash instead of an associative array is because really they're treating this like an object, not an array. Whereas, like, say a language like PHP has associative arrays, but associative arrays in PHP are treated like primitive values, like primitive data types. which is a little bit annoying, not having arrays be treated like objects. Anyway, so yeah, it wants us to figure out what this does. I'm guessing, we're gonna spit out this hash at the index of name, which is gonna spit out Eric. The index of age, which is 26, hungry, right, which is true. So we should see Eric 26 true, and we do. Using hash.new, what we just showed you was hash literal notation. We call it that because you literally describe what you want in the hash. You give it a name and you set it equal to one or more key value pairs inside curly braces. You can also create a hash using the hash.new, like so. My hash equals hash.new. Setting a variable equal to hash.new creates a new empty hash. It's the same as setting the variable equal to empty curly braces. So the instructions use hash.new to create a new hash called pets. Hash must be capitalized or Ruby won't know what you're talking about. So pets equals hash.new. That passes. Let's go to the next. Adding to a hash. We can add to a hash two ways. If we created it using literal notation, we can simply add a new key value pair directly between the curly braces. If we use hash.new, we can add to the hash using bracket notation. Okay, so this is kind of like pushing a value onto the hash at the key of whatever you say here. So add a pet to your pets. Hash could be any key value pair you like. So we'll do pets at, we'll create a new key. We'll call it Bella. And Bella is a dog. Run that. And it's green. Accessing hash values. You can access values in a hash just like an array. We've already seen that. In the example above, we create a hash called pets. Then we print cat by accessing the key Stevie in the pets hash. Access the key value pair you added to pets, just like step 2 in the example above. Use puts to print the value to the console. So puts, puts pets at the index of Bella, and we should see dog. Next, introduction to iteration. Remember when we covered loops and iterators? We could use a whole bunch of different methods for looping in a program. When we loop over an array or hash, we say that we iterate over it. We'll be using the each iterator to iterate over arrays and hashes in this section. Take a look at the code in the editor to see one example of how we might go about this. So when you think you understand the code in the editor, click Run to see it in action. So we have an array of friends. We have Milhouse, Ralph, Nelson, Otto, good Simpson characters. In the family, we have Homer is a dad, Marge is a mom, Lisa's sister, Maggie is a sister, Abe is grandpa, Santa's little helper is a dog. So for each index in friends, we're going to call it X, and we're going to print X. So this will print Milhouse, Ralph, Nelson, Otto, and that'll be on separate lines because we're using puts, not print. And then, so for each key value pair inside of this family hash, we're going to put the key and then colon, literally colon, and literally space, and then the value of y. So this is going to put Homer, Dad, Marge, Mom, Lisa, sister, and so on. And those will be on separate lines too. So let's run it and see So we have Millhouse, Ralph, Nelson, Otto. Then we have Homer, Colin, Dad, Marge, Mom, Lisa, sister, and so on. Iterating over arrays. Iterating over arrays is easier than it looks. We have this example. In the example above, we create an array called numbers with 5 elements. Then we say, take this array and for each element, print it to the console. As usual, we can use any placeholder name for the bit between the 2 pipe characters. Use the each iterator to puts out each element of the language's array. Make sure to puts instead of print, so each element is on its own line. So languages.each curly brace pipe, and we'll just say language puts what just wants me to print the language. Okay, and we'll run that, and we get HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Python, and Ruby. Next. Okay, iterating over multi-dimensional arrays. Now let's see how to iterate over a multi-dimensional array. We've created a 2D array, S for sandwiches. Awesome. We want to iterate over S in such a way that we don't print out each element as an array, like ham or Swiss, but each element within each subarray. So we get a list of all the meats and cheeses within S. Pardon me. So we could, if we just wanted to access Swiss, we could type S at the index of 0, 1, right? So 0 is this guy. And then since that is an array, we can call these square brackets, right? Because the value of S at 0 is an array. And arrays, we can access the index of like this. We're going to access index 1, which is Swiss, in the 0th array, right? Meaning, bring me the second element of the first element, which is Swiss. If we iterate over a regular array using array.each element action, then how might we iterate over an array of arrays? So it wants us to figure this out on our own. Puts out every element inside the subarrays inside S. Iterate through each element in the S array. Call the elements subarray. Then iterate through each subarray and puts out their items. So S.each curly brace. It wants us to call this a subarray. Okay. And then, so for each sub array, I'm guessing you can do this. So for each subarray, which we'll just call, I don't know, item, we will put item and run that. We get ham, Swiss, turkey, cheddar, roast beef, and I'm not sure what that is. Ryrie? I'm sorry. I can't move on without knowing what that is. How do you pronounce it?
How to pronounce Gruyere.
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 I don't think I've ever eaten that before. Okay, anyway. Next. Iterating over hashes. When iterating over hashes, we need 2 placeholder variables to represent each key value pair. So in the example above, we create a new hash called restaurant menu. Then we loop through the restaurant menu hash and assign the key to item. and the value to price for each iteration. Finally, we puts out noodles for soup 3, salad 2. Use .each to iterate over the secret identities hash. Use puts to print each key value pair separated by a colon and a space. Secret identities. .each. So I'll just be very literal with my naming choice. Key value. So for each identity, we're gonna have two. Oh, I forgot my curly braces. We're gonna have two values, right? So for each identity, we're actually getting a key and a value. The key will be the first item that you put between the pipes, and the value will be the second. So puts, and we'll do string interpolation, the value of key, colon space, and then the value of value. If we run it with any luck, the Batman is Bruce Wayne, Superman is Clark Kent, Wonder Woman is Diana Prince, and Freakazoid is Dexter Douglas. Next, multidimensional arrays. Great work. You've learned a lot in this lesson. Let's do a little review to be sure you really know your stuff. Create your own multidimensional array called myArray in the editor. The elements of the innermost array can be anything you like, numbers, strings, booleans, and so on. Check the hint if you need help. Okay, so I'll make an array of arrays, and I'll just make a few items in this array, and we'll make a few items in this one, and run it, and that works. All right, next. Oh yeah, so when they say you can put whatever you want in arrays, like you can other programming languages, you have to specify the type. So if you were to have like an array of booleans, you'd have to say something like bool myArray equals, and then you might have an array of booleans, right? And if you were to try and do this, the programming or the compiler or the interpreter will actually crash and tell you that this is a syntax error. Ruby is a little more flexible and lets you mix these different data types in your arrays. So yeah, hashes. Good. Now let's create a hash. Feel free to use either hash literal notation or hash.new. Instructions say create a hash called myHash in the editor. Give it at least one key value pair. myHash equals. I don't like the indentation it gives me. I'm just being super boring with this because I'm not feeling very creative this morning. Key and value. Run, this should pass. Awesome. Iterating over a hash. We've done a fair amount of iteration over arrays, so to finish up, let's review how to iterate over a hash. Iterate through each key value pair in lunch order. Please puts out the value of each pair. Just the value, not the key. So we'll go lunch order dot each, and whoops, curly braces, pipes. We'll say order for each lunch order puts the order. Whoops. Okay, right. So order actually what we want is we want name, order, and we want to print the order, because we just want to print these guys. So let's run that again. And it should pass, and it does. And that's the end of this lesson. So coming up next is create a histogram. In this project, we'll write a program that reads a block of text and tells us how many times each word appears. So that wraps up hashes on our Ruby journey. I just realized, because I don't have the pro account on Codecademy, the next lesson literally is the last one. The rest are all locked out. So that's not even halfway through the total Ruby course. So I think we'll probably just wrap it up there, and then I'm gonna jump into, I don't know, I'm having a lot of fun doing this, so I'm kind of thinking I'll probably just do the Ruby on Rails course, go through that. If I get a lot of attention on this and you guys think it's pretty cool, I'll buy a pro account, and then we can just run through the rest of the videos and finish this series off. Yeah, if you have any questions about this last video, please leave them in the comments below. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up, click the subscribe button to get more, and yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers.